Hey everybody, welcome back to my page. If I post this on YouTube, hey everybody over there. I'm just gonna start sharing some of my law school stories because I got some more stories. So, my first year of law school, I was placed in a class with a professor who was ex-military. So this man was one of the most intense people I had ever met. Um, and your first year of law school, you don't know really how to do much of anything. You're immersed in a new world that you don't know anything about. First things first, you get 9 times out of 10 in most classes, you get one grade for the entire semester, and that's usually your final exam. So that was culture shock number one for me. Culture shock number two for me was when I discovered that professors don't really answer questions your first year. They kind of just play with your head almost, and they answer your question with a question that's called the Socratic method. So that's number two. Number three, learning how to read a case is not the same as your everyday reading. It's literally a whole different way of reading and processing and comprehending material. So, law school was like my first year was like the equivalence of being placed into like a different world with very little armor or very little, warning because I was a first year student. First generation student. Nobody in my family and my immediate family were lawyers. So I'm being immersed in a world that is completely different. Like I'm like a fish out of water, so to speak. So back to my professor, right? Let me tell you about my professor and the time that I had to brief a case. And some of you might notice it when I talk in videos, but I have a lisp, like a slight lisp. And sometimes I have a little bit of issues with my speech. I try to work on it and pronounce my words, but sometimes I struggle with my speech, especially when I get overwhelmed or I get nervous. I really struggle with my speech. So I'm being called to brief a case, right? And I get stuck on the word substantive. And to this day, I don't really think I'm pronouncing it correctly. And so my professor badgered me for about 30 minutes straight on the word substantive. And I kept butchering the word. Now, mind you, I'm standing up in a class full of like other students, about 40 other students, and I'm being ripped to shreds. And I had to keep my calm and my composure and not react and stay professional. So finally, towards the end, I said, Professor, I have a southern accent. I have a lisp. This is the best it's going to get. And finally, he said, well, I have a doctorate in linguistics. So I understand more than anybody about speech. And I said, yeah, that's great, Professor. But this is the best I'm going to say this word. And at this point, I'm letting him know, like, please back up off me. Respectfully. Um, and then this man would troll the living crap out of us. And let me tell you, this man would say things like, time will pass, but will you? But, and then he will always tell us how he was such a hit in the military because the women used to want him. He was a hot mess. But first year law school was no joke. That was one of my stories that I remember fondly about law school. And yeah, that's one of my law school stories. If you want to share another one, I will. But I thought it was fun to kind of start sharing these on my TikTok. Anyway, if you're in your first year law school or law students, hang in there. It gets better. And trust me, if you got a tough professor now, it does help you for when you deal with judges in the future that are like enemy number one. because I deal with that in practice. And because of that experience, I'm able to hold my own as an attorney now. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you guys for listening. Bye.